Hey everybody, so we're going to sit here and talk about something very important that is never covered in school, but it's something that everybody needs, especially if you're going to college, which is how to take notes in math class. And don't forget, there's going to be a PDF of these notes that I make in this video, and there's going to be a free download for these notes on my website at czanstutoring.com. And you can always find those notes for math, chemistry, anatomy and physiology, biology, all the STEM subjects, along with tips and tricks on how to study, especially studying for college, how to get good grades, and how to study in a group, and a whole bunch of different stuff you can find on my website at czanstutoring.com. And those also have links to specific videos back here at my YouTube page, so it'll hook you up with the exact videos that you need and the exact playlist that you need. And as always, my website is completely free. The downloads are free. There are no ads. There's no membership required. I do not ask for your personal information because it's none of my business. So, how to take notes in math class. And I'm going to use fractions as an example because a lot of people have problems with fractions, and so I thought it was about time I did a video about it anyway. But I'm going to do two things at once, and I'm going to do fractions, but I'm also going to show you how to take notes in math class because nobody knows how to take notes in math class. They don't teach you that, and students end up just doing something like this. See, as you can see here, everything is written over. I wrote down the problem that the teacher put up on the board in class, and then as she was working the problem, I worked the problem with her, and I just wrote over what I had, and I can't read this. I can't get out of class and then go home and then look at this and figure out what the heck it was I did. I mean, look at this. This is crazy. How are you supposed to know what you did? How are you supposed to know what you did? Writing over everything like that. How are you supposed to know what to do now that you're home and you have to do your homework? So here are some major problems that I always see with many students. They do their work. First of all, they do the work in pencil. Don't do your work in pencil. That is ridiculous. Because you know why students do their work in pencil? Because they like to be able to erase. And erasing is bad. Do not erase things. First of all, if you get into a test and you're taking a test and you make a mistake, there is no time to erase it. You just have to use a different section of the paper, a clean section of the paper, and move on so you can do your work. You can't spend all your time, the test time, erasing your mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. There's only 24 hours in a day. Nobody has time to erase. But secondly, and more importantly, you don't erase your mistakes because you want to keep those mistakes. You want to keep those mistakes in your notebook so you can go back and see what you did wrong. You want to be able to go into class the next day, and if you're asking your teacher to explain something because you're still confused about it, you want to be able to point out that problem that was giving you trouble and what you were trying to do and how you were trying to solve it, so your teacher can see that and tell you how explain it to you and break it down and tell you, where you went awry. Also, especially if you were a visual learner, you want to be able to have that visual in your notebook of problems crossed out so you can remember, the visual of that page. You're like, oh yeah, that's the page where I had that big cross out at the top. It's just a visual cue for what you're doing. And lastly, you want to be able to go back and see where you're messing up because you want to be able to know what to work on and what to study for the test. You don't want to study stuff you already know how to do. You want to go and you want to see where you're still having problems and address that. And then you go into your tutoring center. You come see me if you're at St. Louis Community College, but you go into your tutoring center and you bring that with you and you ask the tutor to explain it to you. But if you come in and you're like, I had this problem, the tutor's going to say, well, let's see it. And you're going to say, well, I erased it. Well, that's not going to help the tutor that much on how to coach you through the problem because they can't see what you did or what mistakes you were making. So you want to use your words in class. It is more important to take notes about the steps used to solve the problems, not the problems themselves. Now, true, you need to write down something like it. So if the teacher is like, okay, well, 1/2 plus 3/4 equals, and then they start teaching about it, and they're using that problem as an example, yada yada and such. Yes, write the problem down, but it is more important to have like half of the page just your words, writing down, well, first I did this, like step 1, I did this, step 2, I did this, step 3, I did this. Write down what the teacher is telling you, not so much the work that the teacher is doing on the board. You don't have to do that for every problem. You can do that maybe, just a couple of the problems the teacher is doing as an example. Yes, write that down so you can see the example, but more importantly, you want to write down the steps she's teaching you on how to solve the problems. Because you're going to get out of math class, and you're going to go to your next class, and you're going to eat, and you're going to do other stuff. You're going to pick up your kids from daycare and whatever, and then you're going to sit down and do your homework, and you're going to look at this problem that you have written down, that you were writing down what the teacher had written down on the board, and you are not going to remember what the heck it was he or she was talking about. Speaking of forgetting what you wrote, after class, just really quickly, it doesn't take a minute, you don't have to sit down for half an hour, just really quickly, go through your notes that you just made in class and make sure you understand them. look at those notes and, fill in anything that, you're like, oh, yeah, she talked about this, I forgot, or, oh, this line doesn't make sense that I just wrote down, and correct it. Just make sure you have some sort of legible notes that you actually understand, that you can understand steps. First, you do this. Second, you do this. Third, you do this for the problems. Also, when you're at home, this is more of a study tip than how to take notes, but when you're at home doing your homework or wherever you're at doing your homework, if you could get stuck on a problem, move on. Do not spend an hour trying to figure out one problem that you are stuck on, okay? Nobody has time for that. Circle the problem with your red pen, make a note on the part that you got stuck on, the part of that problem you got stuck on with your red pen, and circle that in your notebook, and then go on and do the rest of your homework. And then afterward, when you get finished doing your homework of the problems that you didn't get confused on, that you understand, that you're okay with, then take a nap, eat food, and then go back and see if you can do it now. Because sometimes you can figure out how to work a problem just after a good nap. Because you're overwhelmed, you're anxious about math, you don't feel like it's a strong subject for you maybe, and so you're freaked out anyway. You don't need to be freaked out trying to work a problem that is already confusing. And if you do the rest of them, give yourself a win, pat yourself on the back for working hard and trying your best. Take a nap, eat some food so you can feed your brain, drink some orange juice. If you have gone over my study tips video, you'll know that I always tell you to drink orange juice before you study and drink orange juice before you take a test to feed your brain, and also so the orange juice taste triggers your memory. So go back and see if you can do it after your nap and after eating. There is no shame in just starting over. Sometimes you get all into a math problem and you're so confused, and then you try to dig your way out from inside of all the work that you did, from inside all that work that you did on your math problem. And it's like, you don't want to give up, you're being stubborn, and you don't want to give up all this work that you've already done on this math problem. But if it's all confusing and it's got you turned around, just start over. It's okay to start over, and then you can go back to your previous notes and compare what you did and where you went wrong. And then finally, but not least importantly, ask your tutor. As I said, the whole reason why I'm doing this to, explain how to actually take notes in math class, it's for you to do better in math, first off, but then you have something written down that you can come in and show your tutor and ask them about. When you cross out your mistakes, do cross them out, but you want to cross them out just with, a little line or like a big X over the whole thing like that. So see, you can still read these words, ask your tutor, through the cross out. So you don't want to cross it out so you can't read it. You want to cross it out so you can read it later on when you're going back and looking at your notes or showing your notes to your teacher or your tutor so you can get something explained. You can also look at this when you're studying for your test so you can see where you went wrong and be like, oh yeah, every time I get to this part, I get turned around and I flipped this on accident, or this is where I was confused, I didn't know what to do there, so I got to remember to do this. So you need to be able to see your cross-outs, but, definitely do cross them out so you know at a glance, the problems that were wrong that you shouldn't look at and think that, those were the correct way to do it.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
As I said, your time is valuable. Nobody's got time to spend an hour on one question. I know we want to be superheroes and we all want to, figure it out on our own, but if you're stuck on a problem, don't spend more than like 10 minutes on a problem.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
If you are still stuck on the problem and it's 10 minutes later, move on to the next problem. By the time you get to the end of your homework and you've gotten all this practice under your belt, when you go back and look at this problem, it seems easy because by that time you've gotten a lot of practice and you're a pro at it, so now you can look at it and it's not as confusing.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So do not spend more than 10 minutes on a question that confuses you. Okay, so now we're going to go on to fractions. And I usually do this with pizza and a pizza party, but since we're on video, I can't give you any pizza, so we're going to do a lot of drawings of pizza. Okay, so fractions are basically just a way to divide. Dividing is the same thing as fractions. If you look at the way we write fractions, 1 over 3, and there's that fraction bar right there. Okay, this fraction bar, is the exact same thing as saying divided by. So this 1 over 3 is the exact same thing as saying 1 divided by 3. Or in long division, 1 divided by 3. It's the exact same thing as 1 over 3. So what does that mean? Well, that means 1/3 is just saying one part out of 3 parts. So we divided something into 3 parts of a whole. And not a hole as in the hole in the ground. A hole is in a whole thing. One whole thing. 3 parts of one whole thing. And we are only talking about one of those parts out of the 3 parts of the one thing. So here comes the pizza, as I had said. So if we ordered 1 pizza. Oh, that's a horrible shaped pizza, but oh well. So we ordered a pizza. And say they cut the pizza like this, because we didn't get Emos, so they cut them in triangles. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of pizza. So 8 pieces. 8 pieces of pizza. So that 8 is going to go on the bottom of your fraction bar. Now, say I come along and I eat a piece. I eat a piece of pizza. And then your brother comes up and he eats a piece of pizza. And then after you finally get finished doing your stuff and you finally wrestle your pizza back from your brother, you eat 2 pieces of pizza because you deserve it. So if we look at this, how many pieces were eaten? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces were eaten out of the 8. So we're talking about 4 pieces were eaten out of 8. So 4/8, and it's written like this, 4, and we go 8, and then we put a THS at the end of it, 4/8. The THS indicates that it's little tiny pieces, 4/8, were eaten of this pizza. Now, if you look at this piece of pizza, or if you look at this whole pizza, if you notice, there's these 4 pieces that were eaten, and the rest is going to be your leftovers for lunch tomorrow, right? So look at this pizza. How much is that? How much was eaten and how much is left over? Well, that's a half, isn't it? Like half of the pizza was eaten and half of it was left over. So how do we translate that into math? How do we figure that out in a mathematical formula? Well, if you notice this 4/8, then we can simplify that because if you notice the number 4 and the number 8, they can be broken down into smaller numbers. Now, remember, the thing about math is that you can never change the value. Okay, don't change the value of what it is you're dealing with, whatever formula, whatever equation you're dealing with. You're not going to change the value, but you can change, in fractions, you can change the actual numbers and not change the value of something. See, this 4/8 can be also called 1/2, because as you can see, it's 1/2 of the pizza. And 1/2, that's the numbers 1 and 2, those are different numbers than 4 and 8, right? But they both mean the same thing. So how do we figure out, if we don't have the picture of the pizza and we just have this 4/8 up here, how do we figure out how to simplify it? It's called simplify because we're making it the simplest numbers as possible, the smallest numbers as possible. Well, we look at this 4 and we look at this 8, and we need to know that 4 and 8 are both multiples of numbers. Now, what number comes to your mind when you see both numbers 4 and 8? What number? It's going to be smaller than 4 and smaller than 8. We need a number that's going to be able to divide into both of these numbers. So let's see. We have 4, and 4 is 2 times 2, right? And 8 is 4 times 2. So look at this. 2 goes into both of these numbers evenly, right? So we're going to take 4 divided by 2, and we're going to come up with 2. And we're going to take 8 divided by 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we have 2/4 here, right? But still, that's not, we know that this is a half of pizza, right? So these numbers can also be simplified. So we're not done yet. And I'll show you a shorter way to do this so you're not going, reducing and simplifying several times in a row. But we're not done yet. I just want to show you how this actually works behind the scenes, why this exists. Now, this 2 and this 4, they are both multiples of a number. They can both be divided by one number. And if I think I hear somebody through the video universe and they're shouting 2, and they're right. So if you take 2 divided by 2, you can also take 4 divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 out of 2/4 divided by 2 equals 1. And 4 divided by 2 equals 2. And there's your half right there. See, we had to simplify it a lot to get it down to a half. But see, this half is the exact same thing as saying 4/8. It's the same value. It's the same amount, but we're using different numbers to talk about the same amount. Now let's do another problem without the pizza so we can do it the way you're going to do it in class. Let's say 3/12. Okay, there's got to be a number that will divide into both of these numbers. Now 3, what we do is we factor these out. Now factoring, and I think I'm probably going to have to make a video on basic factoring because a lot of people don't remember this because they were really, really little when they were taught this in school, and then it's not brought back up again, but you do need to know this. This is an important thing. So factoring is when you're tearing this number apart into smaller numbers that multiplied together equal a number. So in this case, 3, we can start with trial and error if we don't know. Okay, we can just start with number 1. Does 1 divide into 3? Well, yes, because 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now does 2 divide into 3? 2 times what is 3? No, that doesn't come out evenly. So we're not going to do that. And then number 3, well, does 3 divide into 3? Of course it does, because 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, and we've reached 3. We're done. Okay, so really, the only things that go into 3 is 1 and 3 itself. Now let's do this for 12. Now, what numbers can divide into 12? So we know 1 goes into everything, and it's that same number. So 1 times 12 is 12. So what about 2? 2 goes into 12. How many times does 2 go into 12? Well, 6 times. 2 times 6 is 12. 3, does 3 go into 12? Yes, it does. 3 times 4 is 12. And so that means 4 goes into 12 because 4 times 3 is 12. Now, does 5 go into 12? No, 5 does not go into 12 and come out evenly. They got to come out evenly. That's the rules of the game. And then 6? Well, yeah, because we did this up here. 6 times 2 is 12. So we're pretty much done with that. Once you start repeating the same numbers, just, reversed over and over again, you're done. There's no more. So we have this on the factoring the 3. The only thing that goes into 3 is 1 and 3. So the under 12, 1, 2, 3, and 4 go into 12. So we need to find a number that is in both of these little trees that we made. And we want to find the biggest number. We don't want to find, like, the 1 and 3 go into 3. We don't want to choose 1. We don't want to choose the tiniest number. We want to choose the biggest number that we found, which is 3 in this case. And we look over here, and it's like, does 3 go into 12? Yes, it does. 3 times 4 goes into 12. So now our factor number is 3. So now we just take that, and we divide the top by 3, which is 3 divided by 3 is 1. And whatever you do to the top of a fraction, you have to do to the bottom of a fraction, or you'll be changing its value. So as long as you do the same thing to the bottom as you do to the top, then it's going to stay the same ratio, the same fraction. So we have 12 divided by 3, and that is 4. So you just put the fraction bar there, and your answer is going to be 1/4. So 3/12, 3/12, th, 3/12, because that means it's pieces of a whole. 3/12 is the same thing as 1/4. 1/4. So if we have pizza and the pizza is divided up into 12 pieces, so as you can see here, we have a pizza divided up into 12 pieces, and we eat 3 pieces, we eat 3 pieces of the pizza, then that is the exact same thing as saying that we ate 1/4 of the pizza. Now, why is that? If we look at the way this pizza is done, if we divide it up, see this 1/4, the number on the bottom is how many pieces to divide it up and look at, and the number on the top is how many pieces you ate. So if we divide this into fourths, so there's 1/4, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. There's another fourth, and here's another fourth. So here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So if we divide this up into fourths, and this piece and these 3 pieces were the ones that were eaten, but if we divide up in fourths, that just counts as one piece. It's still the same value. It's still the same thing. Now, it's not going to tell us like that we actually divided up the pizza into 12 and we ate 3 of the little pieces, but it's going to tell you the amount of pizza that we actually ate, because we still 1/4 is 3/12. It's the exact same amount, so it doesn't change the value. So I hope you can see why 1/4 is the exact same value as 3/12. Now, if we have a problem like this, an addition problem, 3/4 plus 1/4, then, and this is addition. And remember, addition and subtraction are, these are brother and sister, and multiplication and division are brother and sister. And everybody's cousins with everybody else. So they're cousins to each other, but the multiplication and division are brother and sister. Addition and subtraction are brother and sister. So each family has their own set of rules. Okay, so first we're going to go over the rules for addition and subtraction. Then we're going to go over the rules for multiplication and division. They're 2 different sets of rules. So make sure you understand that, so you're not doing, applying the addition rules if you have a multiplication problem. And I'll give you a hint. Multiplication and division is way easier than addition and subtraction. So let's do the hard stuff first, which is addition and subtraction. So if we have this addition problem, 3/4 plus 1/4. The thing you want to do when you're dealing with fractions is these bottom numbers, this stays the same. See how these numbers are the same? They're both 4. Okay, so that just stays the same in your answer. You just carry that on over to your answer, and your answer is the bottom number on your fraction is going to be 4. Then it's the top that you actually add. So 3 plus 1 is 4. And now we've gotten to the point where I will tell you that when you have the same number on top as you do on bottom, 4/4, well, if we have pizza and it's divided up into 4, and we eat 1, 2, 3, 4 slices of pizza when it's divided up into 4 pieces, well, that pizza is going to be gone. We ate it all. So 4/4 is the exact same thing as 1. We ate 1 whole pizza. Now, mathematically, you can also check that because, as I said, a fraction bar is the same thing as a division sign. So 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So you can check that by just doing actual math instead of eating a whole pizza and making your little brother cry. Now, here is an addition problem, but look at this. The numbers on the bottom are different. So And this is where I'm going to start showing you how you should be taking math notes in class. So we're going to divide this page, say this is your notebook, and we're going to divide this page into two, a left and a right half. So you write down this problem that the teacher has put on the board on the left. And then on the right, you're going to write your words. Words. And you're going to explain to yourself what is going on here. So we're going to write over here, numbers on the bottom must match to add. So first we're going to write that. The numbers on the bottom must match to add them. So how do you get them to match? Well, we need to find multiples. And this is the opposite of what we did with the previous one. The previous one was we were finding numbers that divided into the numbers to make it smaller. We're going to make these fractions bigger so we can add them. So we're going to find multiples and we're going to put bigger just to remind ourselves that we're making these fractions bigger to match the bottoms. So 4 and 3 are the numbers that have to match. The 3 and the 1 on the top don't have to match, but we're going to end up changing these because remember, you can't change the value. Can't change the value. So whatever you do on the bottom, you have to do on the top. Whatever we do on the bottom, do on top. So we have this 4 and 3. So 4, when you're counting by fours, remember our basic times tables, we go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. That should be enough. And then when you're counting by 3, count by 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and that should be enough. So we need to look for numbers that match out of both multiples of both the 4 and the 3. So which number is the smallest number that is a multiple of both the 4 and the 3? Is it 4? No, there's no 4. Is it 8? No, it's no 8. Is it 12? Yeah, there's 12 right there. So the smallest number that both 4 and 3 go into is 12. So we're going to make notes over here. Find least common multiple. And if you put initials about something, you got to put down what it stands for somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to forget, and then you're going to wonder what that initial stood for. Least common multiple. And these are multiples. So multiples. So you need to find the least common multiple, and the least means the smallest number. So we found 12. So now we are going to change both the 4 and the 3 into 12. And remember, what you do on the bottom, you got to do on the top. So whatever we do on the bottom to change this 4 and 3 into 12, we got to do on the top as well. So now 4 divides into 12 how many times? Well, 4, 8, 12. So that's 3, right? 1, 2, 3. So in order to turn the 4 into 12, we need to multiply the 4 by 3. So, and I kind of wrote that backwards, so that's kind of confusing. So 4 times 3 equals 12. And so remember that 4 times 3 is the number we multiplied the 4 by to get 12. Well, what we did on the bottom, we have to do on the top. So let's make a note first on our notes section. Let's see, how can we put this? Turn the 4 into 12 by multiplying. What number do you multiply to equal 12? So what number is that? That was the number 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. So we multiplied the 4 on the bottom by 3 to get 12. Now, so that means we have to multiply the top number by 3 as well. So let's put that in our notes. Multiply both top and bottom by the lowest common multiple. So now we multiplied 4 times 3 equals 12. So this goes 12 down here under the bar. And 3 times 3 equals 9. So 9 goes in the top. So now we have turned 3/4 into 9/12. Because remember, 3/4 is the exact same thing as 9/12. We're just saying it a different way so we can add these numbers together. Because 3/4, if you have your pizza divided into fourths, you eat 3 pieces. Then now here's 3 pieces eaten out of 4, right? But if you take that same pizza and divide it into 12ths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those pieces, see the 9/12, 9 out of 12 pieces, is the exact same thing as when we ate 3 out of 4 pieces. Same deal, same amount, same value. So we're not changing the value. We're just using different numbers to express the exact same thing. So we're halfway there. Now we need to repeat with the other number, do same for second fraction, make bottom numbers same. So now we have to turn this 3 into 12. So how do we turn 3 into 12? What do we multiply it by? Well, we can multiply it by 4. So 3 times 4 equals 12. So now we have a 12. So what we do on the bottom, we got to do on the top. So now we got to take that 4 that we multiplied the 3 by, and we got to multiply that against the 1. So 1 times 4, and 1 times 4 equals 4. So that's going to be our new top number. So now we took 3 over 4 plus 1 over 3, and we've changed it into 9 over 12 plus 4 over 12. Why? Because we need these bottom numbers to be the same in order to add them. And just as I showed you on the previous example, you keep these bottom numbers the same. You just rewrite it, bottom number, and then it's the top numbers that you actually add. So 9 plus 4 is 13. So now we have 13 over 12. Now, speaking of 13 12s. Now, speaking of 13 12s, do you notice something weird about this fraction, this 13 over 12? Well, this is what we call a top-heavy fraction, because the top, 13, is a bigger number than the bottom, 12. So what can we do about that? It's not, I mean, I guess it could be considered as also another way of simplifying, because you are making it more simple. But what it's called a top-heavy fraction, and we're going to turn it into a mixed fraction. And it's mixed because we're going to end up, since the top is larger than the bottom, we're going to end up with a whole number. We're going to end up with a whole number, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, a whole number, and also a fraction, x over y. Just those are just substituted there for any numbers. So we're going to end up with a whole number and a fraction, so it's called mixed numbers. So what we can do with this is 13 divided by 12. The fraction bar is the same thing as a division sign, 13 divided by 12. So if we divide 12 into 13, if you remember your long division, well, 12 goes into 13 once. So 1 times 12 is 12. So we're going to have 1 left over after we divide 12 into 13. So we're going to have one whole number. I'm going to write W for whole. And then we're going to have a remainder of 1. So 12 into 13 is 1 remainder 1. So that means this whole number, this is going to be your whole number, the 1. And let's turn this into an equal sign. And then you take the remainder number and you put it on the top of the fraction. And then you just carry on over whatever the bottom was on the fraction. So 13 over 12 is the same as saying 1 and 1 12. And don't forget to write this down on your notes. So for the top heavy fraction, you do the division, like 13 divided by 12 is the same as 13 divided by 12. And you take the whole number, stays as a whole number, it's just a whole number, it's 1 in this case. And then the remainder goes to the top of the fraction, is the number for your top of your fraction. And then the bottom number, the bottom of the fraction, stays the same. So this 12 stays 12. 12 into 13 is one whole thing, so that's this. And then we have a remainder of 1 left over, so the leftover goes to the top of the fraction. Now, why is that? Because if you think about pizza, and say we have this pizza, and it's divided into 12 pieces, and you and I eat all the pizza, we eat all 12 pieces out of 12. We eat all 12 pieces out of 12. That's one whole pizza. But then we eat another piece, or I eat another piece because I'm a big hog. So I eat another piece. So together we've eaten 13 pieces of pizza, and the pizza was divided into 12 pieces. So that's what that 13/12 means. It means each whole thing, each whole pizza was divided into 12 pieces, and altogether we ate 13 pieces. So 13 is the pieces we ate, and the pizzas are divided into 12 pieces. We don't have to indicate that we had 2 pizzas because it's just obvious to people, if you're looking at the fraction, that obviously there had to be 2 pizzas because we ate 13 pizzas and each pizza is only divided into 12 pieces. So of course there had to be a second pizza because how else would we have eaten 13 pieces? So you don't have to make a note that there were 2 pizzas. You just put 13, 12, and that's all people need to be able to see what was going on in the story. Now, what if we have mixed numbers and we need to figure out what the top heavy fraction is? So we need to do it backwards. So here's the mixed number, 1 and 1/12. So how do we do it backwards to turn it back into a top heavy fraction? Well, we take this bottom number, this 12 of the fraction, and you multiply it by that whole number, which in this case is 1. So that gives us 12, stays the same. And then you take this 12 and you add it to the 1, which gives us 13. So we have 13 up top, and then we just carry on. That same bottom number stays the same on the bottom. So now in your notes, you're going to be writing, you go multiply the bottom of the fraction number times the whole number, and then add the top of the fraction number, and that will give you the top number. And then you keep bottom number of the fraction the same. Or something like this. Whatever notes you need to write so you remember what the steps are. Let's try it down here. So here's the bottom number 7. So we take it times the whole number, which is 14. So that's multiply. I'll put for multiply, because you can't tell if I'm writing the X cricket or the addition sign cricket or what, so I'll put multiply. So 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2, we'll put add, plus 2 is 16, and that goes to the top, and then whatever is on the bottom of the fraction, you just keep. So the top heavy number for 2 and 2/7 is 16/7. Now for subtraction, we need to do the exact same thing. Because remember, addition and subtraction are brother and sister, and they live in the same house, and their parents give them the same rules. So you got to obey the same rules with addition that you got to do with subtraction. So subtraction has to have the same bottom numbers to the fractions. So we have this 4 and we have a 2. But 2 can go into 4, can't it? What times 2 equals 4? Well, 2 times 2 equals 4, right? So we can change this 2 into 4. 2 times 2 equals 4. And whatever you do on the bottom, you got to do on the top. So 1 times 2, that equals 2. So now we have this 2 and this 4, so 2 over 4. And then since this already has a 4 on the bottom of the fraction, we can just bring that down and use that. So 2 over 4 minus 1 over 4. And you keep the bottom number, and you just subtract across the top. 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2 over 4 minus 1/4 is 1/4. So you're going to put in your notes, subtraction, same as addition. Bottom number has to be the same. And then subtract across the top. Now we're getting into the fun stuff, because now we're going to do multiplying. Let's do our notes. Don't forget to use your words. Multiplying fractions. So we have 3/4 times 2/3. Now, I bet you're saying, oh, but there's a 4 on the bottom, and there's a 3 on the bottom of the other fraction. Now we got to go through that whole thing and get them to be the same number.
Oh, for crying out loud, would you please shut up for once? Always griping and moaning about something.
Nope, don't have to do that at all. Not for multiplying and dividing, which is why it's easier. All you got to do for multiplying is you just have to, you multiply it across, and you multiply across the bottom. So you multiply it across, 3 times 2 equals 6, and 4 times 3 equals 12. And that's it. That's 6 over 12. Now, of course, you have to simplify, because see, doesn't the 6 go into 12? Isn't 12 a multiple of 6? Well, so how many times does 6 go into 12? Well, 2. And how many times does 6 go into 6? 1. Because you're going 12 divided by 6 is 2. And what you do on the bottom, you got to do on the top. So 6 divided by 6 equals 1. So that's where that goes. So 6 over 12 is the same thing as saying 1/2. When you're making notes, don't forget to make the notes. Don't forget to simplify. Don't forget. Oh, don't forget. Simplify. Because after you get on a roll with fractions in class, you might get counted off if you don't simplify the number down to the smallest fraction, the smallest numbers in the fraction as possible. This brings up another point that I get to show you, which is extra cool, and another reason why multiplication is cooler than adding fractions. And that's, if you notice, there's a 3 up here and a 3 down here. Well, if you had 3 over 3, that would just equal 1, right? Because if the number is the same on the top and the bottom, that just means one whole thing. Because if we had a pizza, well, that's 4 pieces. But if we had a pizza divided into 4 and we ate all 4 pieces, we had a pizza divided into 4 and we ate all 4 pizzas, we ate one whole pizza. Right? So that's just 1. So since we have a 3 up here and a 3 down here and it's multiplying, we can just cancel these 3's out. Because we can say this is just 1. And, 1 is the same. You can also write it 1 over 1. 1 over 1, which is the same thing. Because, it doesn't matter if you have 1,500 over 1,500. That's still 1. Because they're the same number top and bottom. Because if the pizza was divided into 1,500 pieces and we ate all 1,500 pieces, we would have still eaten one whole pizza, right? So it doesn't matter what the top and the bottom numbers are. If they're the same number, that just means 1. So we can write little invisible 1s up here and down here and use them as invisible 1s and just cancel these 3's out. So we just go 1 times 2 equals 2, and 4 times 1 equals 4. And that's the same thing. And now we have to simplify that. 2 over 4, if you remember earlier, we did that, and it's 1/2. Because 2 is half of 4. And here I'll show you if we draw it out and do it, it's going to turn out to be the same thing. If we just go 3 times 2, that's 6. 4 times 3, that's 12. And so see, isn't 6 half of 12? So it just means 1/2. 6 into 12, 12 divided by 6 equals 2, and 6 divided by 6 equals 1. So that's just 1. It's the same thing. It's 1/2. It'll turn out to be the same thing, but it's a shortcut and it saves you a lot of time if you cancel things out that are on the top and the bottom. So for your notes, you need to be putting down that if the top and bottom have same numbers, you can cancel. And I'll write invisible 1s. And just treat them like a 1. So just multiply the other numbers. So if you have here times here, top, bottom, top, bottom, top times top, bottom times bottom. Now, division. I bet you're thinking, well, if that's multiplication, division should just be 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and 9 divided by 5. Well, oh, wait a minute. That's going to give us another fraction down here. So that's pretty useless. That's not good to do that. And it might give you the wrong answer. So we are going to cross this attempt out. And I'm going to show you how to do this. We have 4 over 9 divided by 2 over 5. What you do is you take this whole second part, the division sign and the whole second part, and you flip it. So we're going to, instead of the division, it turns into multiplication. And instead of 2 over 5, it turns into 5 over 2. Dividing 4 over 9 divided by 2 over 5 is the exact same thing as saying 4 over 9 times 5 over 2. Then you can multiply across. 4 times 5 is 20. 9 times 2 is 18. And that's going to be your answer. Because if you flip it, don't flip both fractions because that won't do anything because they're both flipped. You got to just flip the second fraction. Just flip that fraction and then multiply across. And it's 20 over 18. Don't forget, this is top-heavy fraction now because this 20 is bigger than 18. So 20 divided by 18, well, 18 goes into 20 one time, minus 18. There's 2 left over, so it's 1 remainder 2. So we're going to have 1 as the whole number, and then we're going to put this up top, 2, and then we're just going to keep this 18, 2 over 18. But we're not finished yet because if you notice, this 2 over 18, this can be simplified as well because 2 divides into 18, doesn't it? Because 9 times 2 is 18. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. So we got to, don't forget that whole number. We got to carry that over. The total answer, the simplified answer is 1 and 1 over 9. So that's going to be the complete answer in simplified form. So for division, you want to make sure you take notes on this. You can't just have, what if you went home and this was your notes, just this left side of the paper was your notes, and now you got to figure out how to divide by looking at this. You are making it so much harder on yourself when you do this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself. Use your words. So division is you flip the second fraction, bottom over top, and you turn the division into a multiply sign. Then you just treat it like a multiplication. Treat it like multiplication. So you multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and that gives you top, bottom number. And then simplify. And then you want to make sure you have that top heavy, the top divided by the bottom equals the whole number, and then a remainder. The remainder ends up being the top of the fraction. So you end up with the whole number, and then the top number is that remainder from the division, and then you just keep the same bottom number. Put R for remainder. So the remainder of the top goes right there. Let's just do one more for practice. Let's do that around the clock that I showed you. We're going to go around the clock. And so let's do that I showed you. Turn this mixed fraction back into a top-heavy fraction. We go 7 times 1 is 7 plus 2 is 9. Right? You just go around the clock. And then you just keep whatever the bottom of the fraction number is and just write that down. So 1 2/7 is the same thing as saying 9/7, a top-heavy number. And that's it. Happy mathing. You totally got this. I believe in you. Do not make it harder on yourself and try to just write down the problems your teacher is writing on the board and not use your words and write down the steps. You need to have the words written down of the steps that you're doing when you get home. You also need to have your mistakes. Do not erase your mistakes. Besides the fact that it's just messy with those eraser crumbs all over and it drives me nuts, but there's an actual reason. It's because you need a record of your mistakes. First, it's a visual cue because if you remember that page of notes, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's when I made that mistake up there and I crossed it out and there's, and here's the rest of the problem down at the bottom. You're going to remember that visual cue. You also need to have a record of your mistakes so you can go back and work on what you're having problems with if you notice yourself making the same mistake over and over again. Also, you need to have that. Don't cross it out so you can't read it again. You got to cross it out so you can read it again because you need to be able to bring that into me when you come see me as a tutor on St. Louis Community College campus or whatever tutor you have on your own campus or your teacher or somebody. You need to be able to show them that because if you come in and say, I had a problem with this, thing with fractions, they're going to be like, well, can I see it? And they're like, oh, I erased it. And so they're not going to be able to see it to be able to tell you what you're doing or see what where you went wrong. And they're not going to be able to help you as well. So you need to keep a record of your mistakes. Write in pen. I would suggest bringing a black pen, a blue pen, so you can change colors for the steps. So every step is a different color, so it doesn't all blend together. And a red pen, so you can circle the questions that you're going to have that you're going to ask later. But, you got this. You can really do it. You're not bad at math. It's just that nobody teaches students how to actually take notes in math class. And so, for goodness sake, for all that is holy, please take a notes in math class. It will help you. It will help your tutor. It will help your teacher. And it will help you get a better grade. And don't forget that these notes are downloadable on my website for free. Just go on there, you go to Get Materials, and it'll show up under the math, and you just click the button, and it downloads, and it is absolutely free. My stuff is always free. If you run into my stuff and you're getting charged, then that's not my stuff. My stuff is always free. There are no ads ever. There's no membership required, and I do not ask you for your personal information because it is none of my business. But I do ask, go on my YouTube page, like you are probably right now, YouTube at Suzanne's Tutoring. My website is suzannestutoring.com. On YouTube, hit like and subscribe, and keep checking back, and check out all of my different subjects. I do all the STEM subjects. I got a lot of chemistry on there. That's really helpful. I got biology, anatomy, and physiology, especially if you're going into nursing or an allied health program. If you want to see me make a certain video that you need help on, please leave a comment or suggestion or email me, and I'd be happy to do it. And don't forget to look for the big red S on YouTube.